Good evening and welcome to the Law Chamber, where legal matters are discussed from a Christian perspective. My name is Anita Delay Dankwa, and as usual, you are welcome to the Law Chamber, TLC. Let me first and foremost apologize. Technical issues beyond our control. Is that what is happening for the science? Many technical issues beyond our control. That's why we're a bit late, and we know that you do forgive us. And you will forgive us because the packed house we have today, the resource persons we have today, you will definitely forgive us. So today is season 2, episode 2, and we are going to do Q&A. Last week we did Q&A on our rights. Today we are going to do Q&A on family matters, family law. So before you get married, what are some of the legal questions you have? After you get married, you're about to get divorced. Are you thinking of divorce, and are you contemplating divorce? The children of the marriage, the properties in respect to the marriage, are you thinking of adopting? What are the questions you have on these areas? That is what we are going to discuss today. So call that friend, to call another friend, to be seated and relax and join us here. So let me introduce my guests. As I said, it's a packed house. If you leave this scene without hearing anything, it's not possible. We really made this day packed for a reason, because marriage is under attack. So we have a pastor here. We have 3 strong lawyers here. 3 strong. So by all means, you get something out of today's episode. So let me introduce our guests. Let me start from my own lawyer, Oladele Kweku Aribike. Lawyer Oladele is the head of Marriages Division at the Registrar General's Department. So if you want to get married, it has to go through his office. He has to find a way. Without him, you can't get married. So we'll be happy that he's seated here. He's a part-time lecturer in family law at Ghana School of Law, Makola. And he specializes in corporate law, intellectual property, and of course, family law. He's the founding member of the Lawyers Christian Fellowship, and he holds a Master of Arts degree in ministry from Trinity Theological Seminary. So we have 2 pastors here. Senior, you are welcome.
Thank you.
And sorry for the delay.
That's okay.
Kakra. Then we have my favorite lawyer, Lawyer Kweku Yamwa Pencil, Notary Public, consultant. Of course, he owns his own law firm, Pencil, and last week he was here, and yes. And if you are someone, as I always say, if you are someone who is very versed with TV, he's always on your show. He's here, and always people tell me that they want his number. Today I asked him if it's allowed. If he allows it, I'll give you his number. Other than that, please, it's not allowed. Senior, you are welcome.
Thank you.
Senior, is he allowed?
Oh, it is. I mean, as long as I'm not touting.
It's allowed.
Yeah. I mean, it's allowed, but they should appreciate that. I mean, it's not for purposes of me courting them as clients on a show. Yeah. But people have issues. People call me outside some of these issues, and the same programs that they talk about here, I offer free services to them.
You said free.
I do.
See, you're in trouble.
Sometimes.
You see, they are qualified and fast because, hey, in this economy, don't you feel you are happy? Please. He has to give chop money. So I'll give the number to you, but please make sure that you pay something. It's important. Jackie.
Anita.
Jackie, you are welcome.
Thank you.
The only female in our mess, of course, you can't have 3 strong men without having that female character who will dilute the whole waters. It's very, very important. Jacqueline Asante Mensah, she's usually called Jackie. To do with crime, if yourself and Jacqueline. She's Jackie. She's a legal practitioner, she's a lawyer. She's the founder and managing attorney of Asante Mensah and Associates. It's a law firm that she has opened up. She's practiced over 9 years.
Yeah, I'm in my 9th year.
Yes. You are now moving to the 10. Hey! The minute you get to the 10, you've arrived. See, that's what we are told, is it true? Then we get to 10
years and the Ghana bar is concerned a senior. And when you get there's at that stage also that you qualify to be appointed a notary
In
public.
Notary Public,
Yeah,
yes.
very right.
Jackie, do you
Definitely.
Yes. So, Jackie, you are welcome.
Thank you.
You are so
Anita.
welcome. Pastor Dr. Paul Kofi Edu Sampa.
Hey.
Which I don't have to call you. I wanted to be sure that I got your full name. Pastor is the minister of the gospel. You're an Adventist. You do know Pastor Sampa. He's a director for projects and family ministries with the Southern Union Ghana Conference of SDA. He's a marriage counselor. He's been married for what, 30 years. And I think, Pastor, you have a new position now.
Yeah, now I've now been moved to the West Central Africa Division in Abidjan. Now the stewardship director for the WAD.
You have the stewardship director himself. For what? She said, yeah. Pastor, today we have all the questions.
No
Because
problem.
someone asked me, is it by force to go through the church before you get married? And I was looking through the law and I wasn't finding anything. So I said, I'll ask Pastor for you.
With the Lord, you won't find it.
So I'll ask Pastor for you. So let me zoom in. Let's just have a general discussion about the topic so that we go into the questions, lots of questions. So when we talk of marriage, what is marriage and what are the types of marriages we have? Senior Pentel.
Well, marriage is essentially, in law, it's a contract between two people, two adults, two people who qualify in law to be married. In Ghana, the legal age for marriage is 18 years. So two people come together, they agree to live together, and decide to bind themselves in a union, a relationship recognized by law. And the law has set the circumstances under which that union will be recognized. Even though in Ghana we always qualify marriage as a union of two families, under the law, I'm talking about the Matrimonial Causes Act, or Marriages Act in particular, it takes the two of you to come together and to agree to be for your union to be recognized under the law. That brings into being a marriage. To be married under the law, I'm sure we've got the registry here.
Oh, yes.
You go, but I have said it very generally.
Yes.
And that is how the marriage comes to being. Under Ghanaian law, there are three forms of marriage that are recognized. Typically, we talk of the ordinance marriage. The ordinance marriage is essentially what we call Christian marriage. Then we've got people who also marry under the Mohammedan law. But the most common, of course, is the customary marriage, where it is typically a union between two families who come together and consent for their daughter and their son to be united in marriage. These are the three forms of marriage: customary marriage, ordinance or Christian marriage, and the Mohammedan marriage. These three recognized by Ghanaian law.
You know, when we talk here, you said something about not needing consent of the family. And then under customary, we are talking about family. So with the ordinance, and is there a difference? Do you need family?
It is certainly a difference. You know, in a customary marriage, as the name goes, essentially a marriage that's rooted in our customs, in our culture, in the way we do our things as Ghanaians, even though it may differ slightly from, if I may put it, tribe to tribe. Fantis, we have a way of course, getting into customary marriage. Ashantis, Achems, all come together as Akan. There may be uniformities in them, but essentially you can't organize a customary marriage. You can't have a customary marriage if the families of both parties have not agreed. Typically, it is the man's family that goes to seek the consent of the woman's family to give their daughter in marriage to their son. So depending on where you find yourselves, there will be different routes of reaching the same goal. And it is of the essence of customary marriage that the two families come together. You can never talk of a customary marriage in Ghana where the two families are not united in agreement that their son and their daughter must come together in marriage. But if you come into an ordinance marriage, Christian marriage, even though it constitutes, still a form of celebration of all manner of people, the law only recognizes the parties and their witnesses. And therefore, about 5-6 people can meet together and there will be a valid marriage as long as they go through the forms defined by law. And of course, I wouldn't speak too much about Mohammedan marriage, but I also know that it takes off similar in similar context. But at the end of the day, once those ceremonies have been performed, then that marriage is also constituted. So there are characteristics that go with each form of marriage. And I know the next question that you're going to ask me, which is obviously the different forms of marriage, how do they eat into one another? Typically, the incidence of a customary marriage is that it's potentially polygamous. Potentially polygamous because under customary marriage, a man may choose to marry more than one. Indeed, there's no limit to how many women a man can marry in customary law. But a man need not marry more than one under customary law. That's why we call it is potentially polygamous. Obviously, Mohammedan marriage, under their Quran, they also allowed to marry at least, I think, up to 4 women at a time. I mean, that's a religious edict, fair enough. But in ordinance marriage, it is what we call an essentially monogamous marriage. One man, one match. You can't marry more than one woman under the ordinance marriage. So those are the incidents.
Someone tried to challenge that law in the Supreme Court.
He withdrew the suit. I'm happy he withdrew it. I'm happy he withdrew it because we have been slapped in the face and been told a few other things. So those are the essential characters. And because of the essential nature of all of these marriages, potentially polygamous and essentially monogamous, the form of potential polygamous marriage can be transformed. What we call in law, we said, what's the expression that we use? Conversion. The word is not conversion. A potentially polygamous marriage can be converted. It is very a common incident these days for a lot of people marrying the cosmos, even for Muslims. I know Muslims who have converted their marriages into an ordinance marriage. And what it means is that once you perform the right, no, it's not right. You come under the rubric of the ordinance. Then you have moved from the potentially polygamous marriage into an essentially monogamous marriage. So if you're a Muslim and you contract a marriage under the ordinance, then you yourself have agreed that outside that woman with whom you have contracted the marriage under an ordinance marriage, any other woman, whatever game you like to play with her, whatever name you like to call, whatever relationship that you enter into after that first woman, that woman can never under law be recognized as a wife. She may be all kinds of things to you, but she can't be a wife. So that explains why even modern day Muslims, a lot of the women are dragging their husbands to the Registered General's Department to contract an ordinance marriage. So that's about the basic differences and distinctions.
Let me say something about consent, parental consent. As whether it is compulsory or mandatory. I was invited to a district assembly some time ago. It was a 2-day program. The lawyer went ahead and told them, once you're of age, you don't need the consent of your parents. And when I got there, the ministers were trying to accost me why that should be the case. And as a lawyer and theologian, I had to use the Bible and the law to address the question. I told them, the Bible says all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. Meaning, legally speaking, once you're of age, you can decide to marry without the consent of your parents. But the question is it proper for you to do? I also told them that if you really want to get the blessing of God on your marriage, you have to give due respect to your parents. Paul said in Ephesians chapter 6 that the commandment, give honor to your father and mother, is the only commandment that comes with a promise. And the promise is so that it will go with you in life. Meaning, if you want to enjoy your marriage, you cannot bypass your parents who go into marriage. If you do, there will be no blessing of God on it. But the other aspect is if your families or your parents have been unreasonable, what do you do? A young lady called into one of the radio programs some time ago and said she was seeing the mother who is a single parent. Somebody wanted to marry her. She went into the mother. She has found somebody who wanted to marry her. Do you know what the mother said? The mother said, I'm your mother, wait. Let me marry before you marry. And the question is, the mother being reasonable? No. So what the young lady can do, she can go and talk to elders or her pastors for them to advise the mother. But if the mother insists she wants to get married before the daughter, she can go ahead and marry. In that case, she has fulfilled all righteousness. Who knows how long the mother had to wait to get a husband before the daughter could get married. And some of the ethnic group will say, oh, we are Ewes, don't marry Ashanti. Some will say we are Ashanti, don't marry Fafra. For us as Ghanaians and Christians or whatever, there's no Jew or Gentile, there's no Ashanti, there's no Ewe, there's no Fanti, we are all one. So you can decide to marry from any ethnic group. What I usually say is this: if a foreigner comes from another continent to come and marry from a family, they see it as a blessing. But if somebody comes from the same part, they will not want to recognize it. They will not want to buy into that. Parental consent is not mandatory, but it is required if you want to have blessing of God on your marriage.
Thank you so much. So Jackie, let me come to you. Most ladies and gentlemen nowadays, they are not married, but they're making properties together. But you realize that they're making properties together, they are having children out of wedlock, and then they are breaking up, and one party says all the documents are in my name, so I won't give you any of it. What will you talk about? What will you say about that?
Well, once you are not married, but you are doing business together, and you are saving together, you know, you still have an interest in that. So when you are breaking up, for instance, if it is a business, the two of you can decide, and then one person can buy the other person out, you know, of the business. If it is a savings that you had together, you can just, you know, share the money pursuant to the contribution that, you know, each person puts into the account. When it comes to the children, the fact that you are not married does not excuse you from performing the duties of a parent to that child. That child did not ask you to bring him or her into the world. So even if you are not married, as a father, you have to perform your duties, take care of your child. As a mother, you also have to perform your duties and take care of the child. Whatever issues the two of you have going on should not affect the children. It is just wrong.
So there was a question that came up, and the person was like, they made some property together, so land, houses, it's all in the name of the guy. And you know, women usually, she was taking care of the home and everything, and all the property were. So right now the guy is saying he'll not give her anything, and she really can't prove that she contributed, and all the documents are in the guy's name.
You see, that is the problem. As women, we should not just sit and then think that the love is going to be enough. Everything is going to fall in pleasant places. It doesn't always happen like that. So when you are doing something together with someone, it's important that you get evidence, because even when you go to court during divorce, we have to prove substantial contribution. Even if it was you taking care of the home, in marriage, if the woman was taking care of the home, you know, while the man was working, the understanding is that whatever the man is bringing in, it's for both of you. So you would have to prove, yes, I'm the one that, you know, cleaned the house, did this for the children, you know, up and down, doing all that, yes. But in a case where you are not married to start with, it becomes very difficult, you know. So I think that it is advisable that you keep track of things. If you are purchasing something with the man and you are contributing physical cash, you should have a trail of how the money, you know, got to him, and you should ensure that your name is on the documents. You know, you shouldn't just be okay. Yes, but you know, the love, you have to use your brain, because guess what? There are so many people, or almost everybody, enter marriage with the vision that we are going to grow old together. But so many things happen along the way, and sometimes you'll be surprised. A marriage that was so promising ends up in divorce. And it is that time that you'll be clamoring for a little something. So you have to, yes, love with your heart, but especially the ladies, let the brain work.
See how Lawyer Pencil looked at you.
Let the brain work. And for women who, you know, sit at home and don't want to do anything, if it is an agreement between you and the man, and you are comfortable with it, that is fine. That can even cover you as long as you are able to prove. Because in court, it's all about proving. Yes. So if you just don't want to work, that is not going to go well for you. You know, because if you have everything, you have an education, the man is willing to support with taking care of the kids, and you don't want to work, he tries other things to make sure that maybe, oh, let me help set a business for you that you can do from home, and you deliberately refuse to work, although you can. You are not going to have it easy in court. I think that a lot of people think that once we are divorcing and I go to court and I'm the woman and I say that I was married to you, I'm entitled to 50-50. But that is not always the case. You know, it is a case-by-case basis, and you have to prove substantial contribution. So sometimes we can have a case where the woman can be given as low as 2,000 cedis as alimony. 2,000 cedis as alimony. Because yes, because based on the circumstances, you do not deserve more than that. So please, the ladies should take note. And if you are not married to him, you are not married to him.
So what is,
you understand?
What is
so
alimony?
Alimony is what we call in Chi a sumsika. You know, when you are, yes, a compensation that is usually given to the woman. It's the women who usually, you know, ask for it, because I think customarily that is what is done. So you ask for that, and then you can also, if you have properties together, you can also ask for some of the property. If they are children, then you talk about where the kids are going to stay. All those are some of the issues that we deal with when we are getting divorced.
Pastor.
Yes.
Pastor Sampa. Someone wants to get married, and the person is saying that I don't want the church to get involved, and the church is saying that if he or she doesn't go through home and family life in the church, he or she cannot get married. Legally, when I ask all the lawyers, they will tell me that it's not legal. Pastor, is it religious?
Well, I think that we have just looked at the marriage according to law.
Yes.
But according to law, it is a contract between two individuals. And so they come together and form what we call marriage relationship. Okay. In the church, it is very different. The church is not coming with two individuals. In fact, we are saying that one should be a man and one should be a woman. And then coming together, we are saying that it's an integration. It's fused together. That is why when you come to the issue of divorce, you find it very, very difficult in our system. Ephesians 5 will tell you the man is the head of the woman. And so your wife is an extension of your actual body. And that's why it is, Jesus says, it is when what God has brought together, no one, including the couple, no one should put it asunder. So marriage is more difficult to separate in our system. That's why you need the church to come in and guide you. Otherwise, you make a wrong choice and you want to pull back. And we are saying no. In our case, you can even go to court and seek for divorce, which is allowed. Because they said the custody of the children, sharing of property and the rest, you need to go to the court for them to guide. That's fine with the church. But even when they issue you with the certificate of divorce, we are still saying that there hasn't been immorality, so we're not going to accept it. So you have the certificate, but
so then now there's a conflict of laws. State law vis-a-vis religious laws.
You see, the Bible is something that we need to really look at it carefully. When it's favoring one of us, then we go by that. But when you want to go according to its tenets, you cannot divorce that easily. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, in fact, verse 10 and 11, he says, a woman is not to divorce the husband. But even if she does, she should not remarry. That is clear in the Bible. Because you cannot sit there, he's abusing you, he's assaulting you, and you are going to be there till he kills you. That makes you stupid. Mm-hmm. So you can pull out, but when you pull out, forever remain single. And if you want to remarry, the Bible says, verse 13 of 1 Corinthians 7:13, go back to your former husband.
What if he's already married?
If he's married, then you don't have a husband. As soon as he gets married, you have the right to marry. There has been immorality registered. So until one, and if you are not fortunate, if you are not fortunate, and the man says that the woman says, "I'm marrying Jesus," then forever, so be it, because she's not going to marry.
You know, I don't want to go into conflict of laws. I don't want to go to conflict because if I go there, we'll be going. So let me ask. So it means that the church guides.
Yeah, we only
but
guide.
It is not mandatory.
No. Not exactly. In fact, when you go out there and you want to marry outside, we have no problem with you because you have that right. The laws of the nation will agree to whatever you do, and so it's accepted, it's married. But we will not contribute if you want to go outside to do that.
So all my tithe and offering?
No, it's not tithe that we used to marry.
Tithe offering, helping build the church.
Can I help you to understand why you return tithe? We, the church, didn't demand that from you.
But you are taking it.
Malachi 3:10 says, God, the creator of you, says, bring the tithe.
Pastor, you are taking it.
Listen. He told me to take it on his behalf. So
I'll see you through him. Okay, but I was just trying to, because it's a whole debate in the church amongst the youth. Because you go to home and family life, and sometimes the rules are very stringent. Sometimes it's as if they favor some people. So some people will come and say, you want to do this, and they allow them. Some people too want to do that, and they don't allow. So it's as if favoritism comes in. So people want to do their own thing.
Now, it's found in society many times, when we look at people's face and apply justice. That's what happens. But if there's the law that we need to follow and we are following it correctly, it will apply to everybody the same that is required. So I think that is because sometimes we are human and we need to. But if honestly you want to marry, you should involve the church. Because it will be
that's an ideal situation.
Yeah, that's an ideal, and it should be the standard of.
So, lawyer, let me ask this question about change of name. You get married, and the woman, most often than not, is being asked to change her name, and sometimes being forced to change her name, and being given an ultimatum: either you change your name or we divorce. And I have 4 questions coming from that, saying that my husband says I should change my name, otherwise we are divorcing. Is change of name mandatory under law? And if it's not, what's the way forward?
Okay, let me say that a woman will be called Miss, M-I-S-S, meaning she's not married. Or she can be MS. Yeah, we don't usually use it. When we talk about MS, I don't want to disclose whether I'm married or not. Or she can be Mrs., meaning you are married. So it is not compulsory that a woman should change her name. Many people don't know this. Even if you change your name until the name is gazetted, it hasn't taken, it does not have any legal effect. Meaning you have to show an affidavit to the fact that you are changing your name. Then you go to Ghana Publishing Corporation. They will gazette the name. The name should come in the gazette, not the government newspaper. Until the name comes in the gazette, the name does not have any legal effect. You even need not publish the name in the graphic or dailies. It should be published in the gazette. And this issue as to whether women married under customary law can use the title Mrs. Mrs. means the wife of Mr. So and so. So a woman married under customary law can also use the title Mrs. Mrs. is not the preserve of only women married under the ordinance or under Part 3 of the Marriages Act. No. In Ghana, we have 3 types of marriages, as our senior said: customary, Islamic, and ordinance.
And now we call customary engagement.
No, what you call engagement, strictly speaking, should be called customary or traditional marriage.
Correct.
It is not engagement as known in the Western world. When the man will meet a woman in the street
Put a
and
ring.
engage me, put a ring. No, it is marriage on its own. And some also think that ordinance marriage is superior to customary marriage. It is not. That's not the case. They all value forms of marriages. Customary is not inferior, neither is it superior to ordinance. Ordinance is not superior or inferior to customary. There was this case of a woman married under customary law. In the course of that marriage, the man went and married another woman under the ordinance. He was having 2 wives. But by law, if a man marries a woman under customary law, he cannot marry another woman under ordinance. That would be bigamy. So the woman married under ordinance, after the man's death, claimed her marriage was superior to the customary marriage. So she drove the first woman from the house and took over the man's properties. But the question is she right to do that? No. In law, the Bible says, the law says a woman who knows that a man is married and she decides to marry the man and the ordinance has committed bigamy. If the woman knows the man has married another woman under customary law and she decides to marry the man under ordinance, has committed bigamy. Or the man had already married another woman under ordinance and that woman decides to marry her under ordinance, has committed bigamy. So in law, the woman who drove the other woman, the woman married under ordinance, who drove the other woman married under customary law from the house, is a criminal. She should have found herself in jail. Because at the time the man married her under ordinance, the man had a wife under customary law. But because the first woman didn't know her right, he allowed herself to be cheated. That's why Professor once said, if you think knowledge is expensive, try ignorance. Ignorance is very, very expensive. So change of name is not compulsory. You shouldn't force your wife to change the name, no.
Okay. So, and I've grouped the questions, and there's another question about a lady, and it's going to be vice versa, Lawyer Pencil, and they were talking about the fact that she has promised to marry the gentleman, everything was going well, now she doesn't want to marry the gentleman again. Now the gentleman says he wants his ring back, he wants his car back, and the lady is saying, no, I'm not giving it to you. And the man wants to take the lady on in court. What's the advice here?
Yeah, you know, typically, a lot of times before actual marriage takes place, I mean, even in Christian terminology, we've got what we call, first is the friendship, then courtship, then it comes to marriage. Only rarely do people just meet and the next day they are marrying, so they go through. But in between, a lot of things can happen. Indeed, under customary law, we've got what we call a siwa, which is the proper engagement, where a man goes to ask of a woman's hand from the family with notice that he intends to marry her, performs a custom, and from that time, the whole idea is that if you're looking for your daughter, you don't find her, she's with me. That's engagement, customary engagement. We call it siwa infante. And it's distinct from a marriage because a halfway house between a marriage and, like I said, the engagement. So at all materials, I can't call her your wife, and though for all outward purposes. So when we
those who be calling her my wife, then the friends will be saying, hey, our friend's wife, you should stop.
Why?
So in law, what has happened is an intention on the part of both of them to marry, all things being equal.
Yeah.
And that intention is sometimes consummated by gifts and by all kinds of things. First, some people go as far as giving Bible and rings and all of that. But when you're given that kind of assurance, it's a contract in law. It's an intention to marry, and it can be enforced. If, without good reason, without just reason, you break it off, like what you're saying, or the next time, typical, what happens is typical the man who show the woman. The next time, the man is going to marry somebody else. The next time, the man is taking somebody to the altar. When you do so, in law, we've got what we call a course of action that we call breach of promise of marriage. In other words, the promise that you gave to her, that you were going to marry her, which was evidenced by the things that you used to give at the ceremony, you've breached that. And you can be sued successfully, except that in this case, you are talking of a woman who has done it to a man. It doesn't matter. The law is neutral, gender neutral. And therefore, when you sue, you can recover the thing that have passed. Because if you gave a car to her, you gave the car under the basis, under the assumption, under the belief, reasonable one, that it is an anticipation of marriage. And therefore, if she decides, you see, like the hunter, the meat is quite nice, but the hunter's clothes is, what's it, if you decide that you cannot go with a hunter, you cannot continue eating the meat. And therefore, those things that were given as evidence, it was actually to seal the relationship up to marriage. So, if you don't like to marry him, it is only honorable that you return them. And if you don't return, it can be enforced by a court action.
But what if she says that it was a gift? It was her birthday. You bought it for her as a gift.
Now you put it in context. You told me that they were going to marry.
Yes. So they were going to get married. They were dating. But right now I'm looking at the situation where
no, if it's
it was her birthday.
Call it a gift. No, if it's a gift, you call it a gift. Don't give me another name. If you say it's a gift, it's a gift. If you say it's a gift, it's a gift.
Yeah.
If you say so, you said it.
So it means that.
But you know that nobody don't give cars. On birthday. Normally.
Right now, it's a normal.
Oh, yeah. I love
no, the bar has been raised very high.
I know you have 5 cars.
Okay, let me say.
Yes.
Let me say this.
Yes.
That what you call knocking or kokoko is not marriage.
No, it's not.
What I actually say is kokoko means I stand at the door knocking, open for me to come in and perform rites of marriage. Until that is done, there's no marriage. And the trick the young guys of today are using on the women. They let me go and see your parents, they know you are with me, they will take the lady in, do whatever they want to do. Anytime they are fed up, they can ask the lady to go away. The lady cannot go to court, that the court should force the man to marry her. But she can go to court for what we call breach of promise of marriage. So the court or no judge will ever force a man to marry a woman or a woman, no. So the lady.
So it's always about the money.
The ladies should always be very, very careful, because the man can tell them to do whatever he wants to do, and then in the end, he ask the lady to go packing. I was speaking in the church some time ago, and the pastor said something. A church member was cohabiting with a man when no rites had been performed. They were having a joint account, even putting up a building together. Before the lady could say Jack, the man had gone to marry another woman. And the lady went to the pastor crying, but there's nothing the pastor could do. So it's advisable that they keep themselves, make sure rites of marriage are performed before they move in to stay with the man.
Yes, and especially in my church, when it happens like that, all the pastors and elders will take their eyes off. Pastor, as if they've not seen.
Nobody has seen.
It's not the case. The issue is rather that we are not contracting the marriage. It's done between the two of you. But we want to witness to see that you have followed all the rules of it. So that you will not embarrass the church one day. They said that your in-law came very annoyed, took the wife away, and so you can't continue with the marriage. But we want to witness that you have actually satisfied both families and you have legally got your wife married.
Okay, so we'll be going for this short commercial break, but before that, Nana Ama Ekwamwa Atifa says, let the brain work 100%. Hey, they are loving it. Asari J says, I'm enjoying the program. Thank you so much. Yeah. Kwabna in Chubosia, who is also watching us. So let's go for this very short commercial break. We'll be right back.
Nia onyankopon hwehwa ne se onipa bia bedi yie e wasase so eno ti adwuma bia wo ye no wo hia ho nimdie ene nkyerɛkyerɛ papa mpanifo se sanwa beba kontomre enkwan ani a na eginemu nam so eno nti na Hope Channel edi dwumadi a ye frɛ se Business Forum abrewo yawada nwumre no nwotwe bia me kyerɛ 8 pm hia me na nakwa mesika me ne mpanifo a waben no wadosukɔ e wo sikasɛmu adwadie mu ene enwuma mu be sinkonya ni amawo nkyerɛkyerɛ papa a ɛbɛboa na nso watimi atumpɔn piao.
afternoon. You've just contacted Ellis McCarthy Healthy Foods. How may we help you, please?
Hi, anyway, I really need your help. I've heard about you, but what do you do? Like, what do you do?
Ellis McCarthy is an agro and food processing company. We do catering, we do food hampers, we cater for corporate lunch and breakfast.
You know what? You know what? It's exactly what I need. Because at this moment, I really need a food hamper for a bot chair who is sick. I would love you to deliver that to him. And also, I've recruited some staff in here. I need lunch. And then my in-laws are coming this weekend. I will need food. I really need food. So I don't know. How do I go about that?
You are at the right place. We would send you a WhatsApp message and then we can conclude that for delivery as soon as possible.
God, thank you. So I'll be on guard. I'm waiting. Please.
Ellis Mukasi, confidently different.
And we're having this lively discussion, and I will throw the question again. So it's simple. Some women stay at home, become housewives, they do all the work. Now it's divorcing time, and most of them I know they will say they didn't do anything, they didn't contribute anything, so they should go home empty-handed. What do you say, Lawyer Benson?
You know, that thinking is very antiquated and very ancient, and they do not belong to modern society or even the state of modern law. The position of law now is not even so much about economic contribution or substantial economic contribution. It's about the fact that two people live together for a lifetime or for whatever season of life, and by the very nature of the way our society is structured, when a woman begins to have children, I've said it that my mom has 7 children, but my father, even though she was an active market woman, quite naturally, by reason of her status in life, she was uneducated. My father is an economist. He knows all the socialist tricks and everything. So therefore, it was going to end up in a situation where my father had everything in his name and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, at least as the law in Ghana now is, upon a finding of fact that two people have lived together, and typically the woman has not made even substantial economic contributions or no economic contribution as can be described in any substantial terms, the court ignores that fact. The court takes cognizance of the fact that it took the woman to relieve the man of all the hassles of life and whatever for him to have a happy home to be coming to on a daily basis, so that in the event, for instance, that there's a divorce or the man dies, because typically when the man has died, the family moves in to say, Fia, you know what I'm saying? Now it doesn't apply. The court presumes that whatever properties that were acquired in the lifetime of the marriage belong to the two of them. It's as simple as that, and the court will make a finding of 50-50, unless the same is there's a contrary evidence to show that in their lifetime, because please don't mistake, even with due respect, our uneducated women. Some are quite hard work. They manage to get things outside the marriage. They manage to build things on their own. So if the court finds the evidence, so I've given you the general position of law now. There's a presumption that they intended to acquire those properties together. But if there is evidence that during the lifetime, either party intended to acquire something to the exclusion of the other party, then the court will find that to be the case. For instance, if in spite of everything that maybe there were 7 properties out of the estate, and one of them is specifically in the woman's name, and so forth and so on, then the court will find out on the evidence the woman knew what she was doing, and she acquired this property in her own name. And therefore, she has one property, the man has these 7 other burdens. But in all cases, it's a question of evidence, evidence, evidence.
The name of the game.
That is so. That is about it. So the evidence that comes in would then guide the court to make a determination. But from now, it can never be the case that a woman can be thrown out of a husband's estate or from the estate that was acquired, from the properties that were acquired during the course of the marriage, for the only reason that she didn't make an economic contribution. It doesn't represent the state of Ghanaian law.
So it means that if you're a housewife and you are staying at home, and you're looking after the children, you're doing all those things, and the man is the one bringing the money and everything, you have interest in the properties. So why is it that most of these women are thrown out of their house when there's divorce or when the man dies? They are thrown out of their house.
Ignorance.
I think that you need to see a lawyer.
Listen, in Accra, you can't believe these things is that they happen in Accra. In my own area, a young main man died. Within 1 year, you can't believe the cheek of it. The family came to the house and they came and told the wife, they came and gave a notice that the room in which she was occupied with her husband, she should move from that room to a room that they showed her. Even if she's moving, she should not touch anything of her husband. And then there are empty rooms in the house. They are coming to bring in all the kind of when the woman came to tell me, it's like I'm walking out from some sleep. In modern Ghana, I'm talking about 2021, is that the case? So you know what I did? I just told her to keep cool. I made a very simple letter to the husband head of family. I referred him to the intestate succession law. I referred him to the amendment of the intestate succession law that criminalizes any conduct on the part of anybody who makes any attempt to throw out a widow out of a matrimonial home, copied the local police, and and in the letter specifically indicated that this letter has got legal implications. So I clearly advised them to seek counsel from a lawyer. I put it in that the last paragraph, and I sent it to them. You know, after about 2-3 weeks, I called the woman and said, well, I never passed him for fear. And I said, really? Fear, you didn't know, how can he ask you suffer? But now he got the clear destiny that what they were doing amounted to criminality because the law has said so. But if people do not know, others are encouraged and they are doing it. 2021, 2022. So that's the state of the law. If somebody's listening to me now and is facing that kind of situation, he should go to the nearest police station. It's a criminal offense. It's even a criminal offense. So you go to the nearest police station, lodge a criminal complaint, and then the police know or they should know what to do.
Thank you so much. Jackie?
Yes. I mean, you should just see a lawyer. You see, in the example that he gave, the woman was able to speak to him, and that is how she was able to get help.
But lawyers,
if you are getting, you see, it is very expensive to get education to become a lawyer. It is very expensive. If we say that we are going to charge for the number, even the number of hours alone that you spend studying to become a lawyer, and even after you become a lawyer, you still have to study. People won't be able to pay. And you may think going to a lawyer is expensive, right? But what you would suffer if you don't see a lawyer would be more expensive. So if you are getting divorced, if you want to get divorced, or you've been served with a petition, a divorce petition, go and see a lawyer. The lawyer knows how to guide you into getting all the things that you need. You understand? Because you don't just get divorced. The children of the marriage are there. If there are any properties, they have to be distributed between the two of you. Maintenance for the children. Some even ask for accommodation because they are leaving the matrimonial home. And so many other things. So if you don't see a lawyer and you go and see these commissioners, you know, those sitting under the umbrellas and so on and so forth, they would not give you the information that you need, and they won't be able to assist you all the way. You would appear in court alone. You will file processes that are inadequate to address your issues. And so at the end of the day, you will be suffering because you wouldn't get anything from it. But if you see a lawyer, the lawyer knows what to do. The lawyer knows the position of the law. The lawyer knows how to help you get a fair deal when you are, you know, divorcing. So you should always seek the services of a lawyer. So if you can't afford, you can go to legal aid. Now, even legal aid is not free. you have to pay something. It's not free. You see, so just
But
see a lot.
comparing it to a
You
lawyer,
see, the Bible says the destruction of the poor is in their poverty.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what the Bible says. So the people who keep saying they are poor, they will be poorer. Because somehow, because like I said, I saved this woman a whole house, even though I did a pro bono.
Yes.
But if you looked at it, even if I said I was going to take some money from her after I delivered it, it would have been worth it.
Yes.
But somehow, what poverty has done is that it has reduced people to a situation where they cannot even analyze and see how it profits them to seek counsel that even cost them money. The other thing that I was going to say is that you are advised, this my beautiful young lady, when it's to have see lawyer, you should add that they may get a pro bono. That was she needed to add. You see, that she didn't add. They may get a pro bono.
Yes. Go and see the lawyer first, and then all other things
shall be added.
Yes.
There's a question here. Pastor, he says, hello, please. I and my husband were living in his mother's house. I told my husband to rent for me, but he didn't. So I moved from there and rented on my own. He's saying because I didn't, he won't come and stay with me permanently, but still stay with his mother. What should I do?
See, in the first place, there shouldn't be any marriage contract between somebody who is still living with the parents. That is a mistake in the first place. You need to move. And it is interesting, in Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, God, the Creator himself, who initiated marriage, says that the man should move. And those statements, sometimes women also add themselves to that statement, but you are not part of it. A woman don't move to marriage. It's a man. Because he's going to be the head of the family. He should have a place of abode where he will start building his own family, you understand? So it is the man that is asked to move. And so if you're going to contract a marriage and the man is not ready to move in the first place, don't involve yourself. It's not fair. It's not fair. Because the parents will still control the man, including the wife. So you don't have to do that.
But with her already in it.
Yeah, now that she's in it, we'll find a way of getting her out. But the best way is not to move out alone without your husband. You still have to put pressure and make sure that he's able to move out of the house. Otherwise, the problem will still persist.
Let me say this. If a man marries a woman under the ordinance or under Part 3 of the Marriages Act, it's only the court that can dissolve the marriage. They not living together does not mean that they are divorced. They should know this. If you marry under customary law, if you want to dissolve the marriage, it can be done under customary law, according to the custom of the ethnic group. Or you can go to court for the dissolution of the customary marriage. So for customary marriage, it can be done according to the custom, or you can go to court by virtue of Section 41 of the Matrimonial Causes Act.
But it's advisable to go to court.
It's advisable to go to court
because
of other
reliefs.
reliefs. But if you marry a woman under the ordinance, it's only the court that has the power to dissolve the marriage, so that in the course of the separation, if either party goes to remarry, the second marriage will be declared null and void. It is not valid. And once you marry under the ordinance, you'll be living apart for 20 years or for 30 years. You'll be separated. Though you are separated in law, you are still married to each other. So that in the course of the separation, if the man goes to marry another woman, that second marriage will be null and void. There was a case of a man who married the woman under the ordinance. They were having a problem with the marriage, so they separated. In the course of the separation, the man went and married another woman under customary law. Later, when the man died, the first woman came back to lay claim to the man's properties. The question is the first woman right? Yes, she's right. Because at the time the man married the second woman, the first marriage has not been dissolved. The question is, what happens to the children of the second woman? The children can inherit the man. Because in Ghana, we don't have anything like legitimate or illegitimate children. But the second woman cannot inherit the man. Because at the time the man married her, the first marriage has not been dissolved. So separation is not the same as divorce. Issue.
The time is almost up. So short. So quick. Final words. Let me start from Pastor Sampa.
Well, we, from the church point of view, if you want to go into marriage, it is a lifelong something. It's not something that you go in and test yourself and see whether you are fit into it or not. Make sure that you know what you are doing and that it is going to take you the whole of your life. Now, if this is not well understood and you go into it prematurely, the consequence from the church side of the whole thing is not palatable, because we will still apply for the rules. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 19, verse 7 to 9, that except for immorality, you cannot divorce. So if you have a wife in that condition and things are not working well, and Jesus is only applying that unless unfaithfulness or death could put you apart, then the next thing you have to do is to pray for somebody to have affairs with your wife so that you can be free to divorce her.
Then that should trap your wife.
Or you have to also pray that maybe she dies prematurely.
Hey,
so
Pastor.
you can. No, I'm saying that those are the only conditions.
Don't go and kill your wife, please.
Those are the only conditions by which you can pull out. And so don't do it in the first place. Sure. Make sure that you know whom you are marrying. Make sure that you back your marriage with prayers and that kind of stuff, so that you can stay in it.
Jackie.
I'll just say that before, during, and even, when a marriage ends, always make sure that you seek legal advice. You have to know the position of the law, because the law has a lot to say about marriage. And if you are getting divorced, it's an unfortunate incident, but then the law has made provision for you such that the separation, the pain associated with life after the separation is lessened. So please seek legal advice. Don't stay and think that nothing can be done, I can't pay a lawyer, and then live in pain. No, seek legal counsel so that you can be guided to get the best out of the situation.
Yeah, I just like to say, I advise women that their position is not as bad as it was before, and that women are no longer held bondage to their husbands by mere reason of entering into the marriage contract. And what it means is that there are lots of rights that are available to them, whether they are in the marriage, out of the marriage, because I always find that a lot of men have got this mentality, even when it comes to children. Men think that they do their wives a favor by looking after their children. And so a lot of them believe, I'm talking even about the women in particular. I have a lot of these cases on my hands where the husband, they don't give a damn, they don't care, they don't really mind. But they should begin to hold them responsible by taking them to the right places, social welfare, the family tribunals of the district, the magistrate court, and so forth. You don't commit a crime, or rather, there's no sacrilege caused if you take your husband to a place where he'll be held responsible. You know what I love about the family tribunal? Most of them are manned by women. And when you go and you tell them they haven't got money, okay, they will remind you. You go and think 2 weeks. But next time you come, you have thought deeply to decide whether you want to maintain the excuse that you don't have money. You have children, you say you don't have money. You will have the money. So let the woman drag them there, and you don't commit a crime by doing so. That's my own advice to women.
Loyalty. Under a minute.
Let me say that if a man marries a woman under customary law, he can take the same woman he married under customary law to the altar to marry her under ordinance. In that case, they are converting. But if a man marries a woman under customary law, he cannot marry another woman under the ordinance. If he marries a woman under ordinance, he cannot marry another woman under customary law. Any person who does that has committed bigamy.
Thank you.
It's becoming unbecoming that some so-called bogus, some marry outside, they go outside to take a second wife. Or some marry outside, they come down to take another wife. It is bigamy. Anybody at all can take them to court.
Thank you so much. Time is fast spent, and thank you for joining us. Same time next week. Next week, and season 2 is about starting from next week, and we are going to discuss inheritance. So next week we are going to discuss wills. If you've not made a will, if you made a will, next week join us same time, 6:30 p.m. Until then, please stay safe and God be with you.